The sages debated everything. Wherever there was a slight doubt, it had to be resolved, because you have to know how to serve God. You have to know how to do a mitzvah. So wherever there was doubt as to how exactly the mitzvah should be performed, the sages got together and thrashed it out until they figured out, until they traced it back to its origins and came to the right conclusion about how the mitzvah should be performed. And sometimes they would get into a debate on principle matters. But when there was a debate on principle, it was always followed with the question of, what's the difference? You're arguing a principle. What difference will it make in actual life? And if there is no actual difference or consequence, then it's not worth arguing about. The most subtle concepts, the most complex subjects are valuable because they lead to a conclusion. And that conclusion will tell us how or what we should be doing. But if it doesn't do that, if it doesn't bring you to a solid conclusion, if it doesn't lead to a better behavior, a better performance of the mitzvah, then it's not worth debating. What difference does it make? Very important question. I'm thinking about anxiety, fears, the fears that people live with. If we want to understand them, if we want to solve them, we want to get rid of them, the first thing we need to do, when you are fearful or when you are anxious, the first question is, what difference does it make? If I'm going to worry about this, if I'm going to agonize over it, what difference will it make? Will it be different if I agonize or I don't agonize? Is there a difference between my fears, which I feel and think about and bite my nails over and stay awake at night and pop pills to calm myself down, or the guy next door who hasn't even thought about it? What difference is it? What's the difference between the worrier, the guy who worries, and one who doesn't worry? There is no difference. It makes no difference. Which means that the worry is useless. And if it's useless, we shouldn't invest any energy in it. So with any feelings, with any concerns, the first question should be, what's the difference? When we realize there is no difference, it takes the edge off. You're not as worried, because your worrying is not as justified as it appeared. So people who really worry a lot and are anxious a lot, it's because they believe that they're supposed to be. If you're realistic and responsible, you should be worried. Be afraid, be very afraid. Well, if that's what you believe you should do, then you do. But when you ask yourself, what's the difference? I'm worried about whether I'm going to get the job or not. And this worry does what? Nothing. I'm just worried. So it makes no difference. There will be no difference in outcome whether you do worry or you don't worry. The previous Rebbe's brother was a very special man. He didn't end up being a Rebbe, but he was close. He invested heavily in lumber. He bought a forest and he was going to make lumber. But a fire broke out and consumed everything. So all his savings were gone. His friends heard about it, and they were very sympathetic, and they felt responsible to break the news to him. They went to his house, and this is back in Russia. They went to his house, and they didn't want to get right to the point suddenly and directly, so they were kind of making conversation, and he immediately realized what they're there for, and he said to them, "Is there something you want to tell me?" And they said, "Yes, we want to tell you that your forest burnt down." He says, "I know. I heard about it a half hour ago." And they say, "You heard about it? How come you're not upset?" He says, "Well, I was upset when I heard about it, but it's been a half hour." And they were stunned. How could he be so calm? So he said to one of them, "How come you're so calm?" He says, "About what?" He said, "Your child." He says, "My child is fine. What's the problem?" He says, "Yeah, but 10 years ago, remember how worried you were?" And I said, "Yeah, well, that was 10 years ago." So the Rebbe's brother said, "So you've gotten over it, but it took you 10 years. I figured if I'm going to get over it in 10 years, why wait that long? So I got over it in a half hour. If I'm not going to be worried about it 10 years from now, then why should I worry 5 years? If I will get over it, why not now?" In other words, worrying about it doesn't change anything. Being upset, depressed, doesn't change anything. So you get upset and you move on. There's no point in pursuing the upset, because it doesn't make any difference. What is it that we're feeling when we become anxious? If you ask people who are anxious, they will tell you that they don't understand people who never get anxious. They don't understand that. Don't you realize the problem that might develop? Don't you realize what is about to happen? How can you be so calm? In other words, they feel that being calm is irresponsible. You can't just accept it. You got to do something. Like what? Like be agitated, worry, bite your nails, pull out your hair, do something. The people who don't get anxious have the opposite reaction. What are you doing? What are you pacing? Why are you wringing your hands? Why are you biting your nails? It doesn't do any good. So why are you suffering needlessly, pointlessly? That's why the antidote to anxiety is trust. Trust means I am not in control of the situation, which means somebody else is. That's okay with me. The fear and the anxiety comes from the feeling that if I can't control it, then it's out of control. So I know, I'm not stupid, I know I can't do anything about it. I know that worrying isn't going to help anything. I know that staying up all night isn't going to change anything. But I can't live with the uncertainty. If I'm not in charge, then nobody is, and that's really scary. Trust means, if you're not in charge, then somebody else is. It's really comforting to know that somebody else is the creator of the world himself, not some devil. So if I'm not in control, then God is, I can relax. If God is in control, then everything's fine. I don't need to be in control. But when we don't have that trust in God, it kind of makes sense that you would be anxious. Because somebody has to control the situation and I can't. And I don't see anybody else controlling it either. That's scary. Out of control, that's scary. And when people feel I'm losing grip, I'm losing my mind. Nothing scarier than that. So there's too much anxiety going on. Because we don't have enough trust. Because we are told that everything is in our own hands. You can be whatever you want to be. Just work hard enough. Just try hard enough. Such a misleading message, such disinformation. No, you can't be whatever you want to be. That's silly. Dangerous. You should try to be whatever it is you want to be. There's no guarantee. Well, if you did it right, you would have succeeded. No, sir. There are people who do everything right. They don't get the success they're hoping for. And there are people who do everything wrong and it turns out wonderful. So we need more trust, and we need to stop blaming ourselves for things we can't control. It's an exaggerated self-importance. It's okay that I am not in control. I never was. There were some people who are kind of flighty, and they say, oh, something happened, I lost control. You didn't lose control. You've never been in control. And that's okay. It's God's world. He's in control. That's good enough for me. That leaves me free to try to do some good. I'm not Atlas. I don't have to hold up the world. He can't go anywhere. He can't do anything. He's got the world on his shoulders. So, trusting, relinquishing some control actually liberates you. You become a much more productive, useful human being. So what is the anxiety? If you use it positively, it can be really, really helpful. Anxiety is the reminder that something in your system is saying you don't have to be in control. You don't. But we don't hear that. We only hear you're not in control. And so we get anxious. But the anxiety is actually telling you, relax. You don't have the world on your shoulder. You don't have to be in control. Why? Because the world has a creator, the world has a master, the world has a plan by which it is conducted, and nothing will go wrong. So you can get rid of the anxiety pills. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.